Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's fourth and final video. We're going to have a look at the weather for 10 to 14 days for today's final video. Day 10 will take us to the 21st of January and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS ECM ensembles. Maybe on track a couple of weeks. We'll have a look at the CFS V2 at the end of the video for the next 4 weeks. Gets us into the start of February and I shall get on that for you in a moment. Just say that first. The video today is our 6 UK weather forecast. We'll also release a weekend forecast and the ECM For 2 day forecast of the UK and Ireland as well. Check out all today's videos and content. Like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Thanks so much everyone for doing that. Right, let's start off with the latest temperature observations from XC Weather. So we've got a balmy 11 degrees flashing away down there in the Isles of Scilly, and we've also got 11 degrees in the far southwest of Ireland at Valentia. However, look at it, it's got minus 10 still flashing away there out Nahara, bitterly cold there, really locked in the freezer. Much of Scotland still sub-zero. Aviemore at 8 degrees, Loch Glasgarnock, minus 8 I should say, Loch Glasgarnock at minus 7, we've got a Boyne at minus 5, Aberdeen just minus 4 degrees there, Tulloch Bridge just struggling above freezing, plus 2, Shafallan at minus 1, Dundee at freezing, Edinburgh just plus 1 as well. And down into the Midlands, very cold for you there. Churchill Orford stuck at minus 2. I think it might be freezing fog around there. Wellersbourne Airfield at minus 3. We've got Shawbury at freezing. Shobden at minus 1. Coming down to Western, it's minus 1. Through there, Cranfield at just plus 1. Wittering has gone up to 3 degrees. Cranwell at 3 degrees. A little bit less cold further south. Forney Island is at 7 degrees. And Exeter is at 7. Into Northern Ireland, 6 degrees up there. It's gradually getting milder in the far west, but the cold air is lingering on in many central, northern and eastern regions. And we're going to find that tonight turns frosty across much of the country, particularly England and Wales again, actually. So check out the weekend forecast for more about that. The trend will be to gradually lift up the temperature over the next few days, but it's going to be a slow old deal, especially so in more central and eastern regions. Well, central temperature has now gone under 2 degrees, so we're now sitting at just 1.8. That's 2 degrees below 61 to 90 average, provisional to the 10th of January to yesterday. A very cold first 10 days of January. That will probably tick down a little bit more. I would imagine that could get to about 1.5 by Monday, and then should gradually start lifting up. But I wouldn't expect the rises to be all that dramatic, to be honest. It could be quite a slow process to lift that back up. But maybe by the third week of January we might be back into the threes with that. Let's have a quick CET Saturday. So this is the CET page from the UK Met Office. Central temperature, the oldest reliable temperature record anywhere on Earth, goes all the way back to 1659. Though, of course, further back you go, the more unreliable it becomes. So if we come down to the bottom here, well, you can see that 2024 is our last year, with January last year coming in at 4.8. By the way, the overall yearly CET for 2024 was 10.96, which is very minor, but a little bit under the past couple of years, which both got into the 11s. But let's focus on January. So I had quite a cold January in 2021 at 3.3. So, you know, that's nothing out of the ordinary, really. But in the modern era, by modern standards, that was quite a coldish January. But our last really cold January was 2010, which had a central in temperature of just 1.5. So this cold spell has been on a par with the cold spell that we had in 2010. The difference is, I think, that cold spell ran on another week or so, and even when it turned milder, there were still regular throwbacks into colder conditions, so that's why we came out with really quite a cold CET overall. I'd be surprised if January 2025 comes out, you know, at 1.5 or anywhere close to that. I think we'll probably come out with a 3 Celsius CET, but it will be interesting to see. Of course, there have been some very mild Januaries as well. We had 2007 at 7.1. That was an exceptionally mild January, one of the mildest Januaries on the CT record. And 2005 as well at 6 degrees, 6.0 was very, very mild too. So, sorry everyone, going back into the 1990s, so not many cold Januaries were doing then. I think the coldest January that we had in the 1990s was in 1997 at 2.4. And then going back into the 80s, well, of course, we had a trilogy of cold winters in the 1980s with two very cold Januaries, and then the other winter focused on February. So January 1985 came in at 0.9 and January 1987 came in at 0.8. Both not quite sub-zero CT Januaries, but not all that far off them. January 1986 at 3.5 was a little bit less cold, but still quite chilly. There was certain times, but look what happened in February of 86. We had a sub-zero CT February at minus a 1.0. Our last sub-zero CT January, which we've spoken a lot about on the channel, was way back in 1979, just here at minus 0.4. I was 2 and a bit years old the last time we had a sub-zero CT January. And of course, we've got to go even further back for the daddy of cold winters, which was 1963, and that had a January CT of minus 2.1. That's the coldest January since 1740, I think, in the coldest winter since 1739, 1740. Note also February 63 was sub-zero for CT as well at minus 0.7. So 2 back-to-back sub-zero CT months, and December 62 was very cold at 1.8. So what a freezing cold winter that has. I mean, we've only had like a few days of freezing cold weather, and we're running out of gas, I hear. Our gas reserves are at very low levels after, what is it, 10 days, 11 days of cold weather. Imagine if we had a 63, what on earth would we do if we had another daddy? And who knows, you know, we don't think we're going to get another daddy, but I bet in 1963 they wasn't expecting a daddy either. Another sub-zero CT January in 1940 there, at minus 1.4. 1947, very cold winter, of course, was sort of January CT of 2.2, and February was the sub-zero CT month in that winter at minus 1.9. Now, interestingly, from January 1940, we have a long gap. Our next sub-zero CT January, although we almost did it in 1917 at 1.6, and even more so for February 1917. But actually, that was just a little bit above being, they were a little bit above being sub-zero CT months. So from January 1940, we have a long gap to our next sub-zero CT January. We have to go all the way back to January 1881, which had a CT of minus 1.5. So from January 1881 to January 1940, there was not a sub-zero CT January. That's actually a longer run without a sub-zero CT January, but you know, so far from 1979 to now. So it just goes to show, but in the early part of the 20th century, there was quite a significant warming that took place, and it all abruptly sort of turned on its head when we got to the winter of 1939-1940. Of course, we did have a sub-zero CT February, though, after that, which came in at 1895 at minus 1.8. That was the last sub-zero CT month until January 1940. So it's like 60 years for a sub-zero CT January from 1881 to 1940, or it's like 45 years for a sub-zero CT any month from February 1895 to January January 1940. So these long runs without a sub-zero CT month have happened before, and they can very abruptly turn on their head. So if I was a policy maker wondering, what to do about the gas reserves, I would start thinking, and maybe planning. I think that would be a wise idea. 1795 had a January CT of minus 3.1. Goodness gracious me. So 1963 was the coldest January since 1795. Then, of course, we've got to talk about 1740 as well. So here it is, the winter of 1739. 1740 had a December CT of 3.2, a January CT of minus 2.8, and a February CT of minus 1.6. That's one of the coldest winters in the entire CT record. And an exceptionally cold year, actually coming in under 7 degrees at 6.86 there. Unbelievably cold year in 1740. And interestingly, that follows like a really warm decade for the era. The 1730s were as warm as anything really, but we've seen recently, on a par certainly with the 1990s. Anyway, very few cold winters in the 1730s. There was this one start the decade, 1730, 1731, but generally a decade of mild winters and pretty warm summers as well. 1733, for example, has a January CT 6.9, a February CT 6.0. Very, very mild pair of months there. And again, we see, for example, 1739 itself, just before, year before, like the severely cold winter, have a February CT of 6.8. We have January CTs of 6.4, 6.2 in 1736, 1737. There were a few hot summer months as well. Interestingly, 1733 has a July CT of 18.3. 1737 has a July CT of 17.4, for example. Notice the yearly temperatures, not as warm as the yearly temperatures, but we see at the moment, but for the era, pretty warm, like 10.0, 10.5, 10.3, otherwise in the 9s and whatnot. And then suddenly we get 1740, and who knows what caused it, but it suddenly flips on its head, and after that warm decade, we go into like an extraordinarily cold winter and very, very cold. Of course, that's back in the little ice age, so it would be unlikely we'd see anything as dramatic as that now, but this cold spell is telling us that we can still get appreciable amounts of cold in this country, albeit, this is quite a short-lived cold spell, although I would say 10 days is pretty prolonged, really. But, it's running out of road now, so it's not going to be something that stretches on for weeks and weeks and weeks. But it is a bit of a wake-up call, I think, for those that might have got a bit complacent and think that, it's always going to be mild. It's always going to be balmy winters. This last 10 days is a bit of a, bit of a wake-up call, a bit of a knock on the door. From the weather gods, maybe, but we should prepare ourselves. But one day we will get a very cold winter. It's going to happen. Statistically, it's got to happen at some point. We still see extreme levels of cold into Canada and North America, and that's going on at the moment. This January is turning into a very cold January for much of North America. We still see extreme levels of cold into Asia at times as well. Because of our position in the world, it's always hard to get those extreme levels of cold. It does depend on the exact, synoptic setup that's got to be just perfect for us and for Northern Europe. But nevertheless, I think this should be a wake-up call. But sooner or later, we're going to get a very, very cold winter, and we should be prepared for that, hopefully with the infrastructure of the country. So we shall see. We'll see whether the politicians or whether the government take any notice. Probably they won't. Anyway, that's CT Saturday. Hope you enjoyed that little look back of January's past. Right, okay, let's have a look at the current weather then, and the forecast weather. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. The next couple of of winds. Look at Dundee today. The red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Dundee. We're still cold average at the moment, but upper air temperatures will be lifting up over the next week or so. It's going to be much milder in the north and in the northwest. It's going to take a long time to get those milder temperatures down into the south and into the southeast due to the proximity of high pressure just to the south, but I think we will see less cold weather in the south anyway. Looking out to the 3rd and final week of January, see the upper air temperatures coming down closer to average. Precipitation-wise, there's going to be a lot of dry weather over the next week to 10 days, possibly going a bit more unsettled through the 3rd week to the final week of January, but even then, it doesn't look overly wet, to be honest, so we could be shaping up for a drier than average January. Temperature anomaly, dry January. Should try that, shouldn't I? Temperature anomaly for the 11th to the 19th of January, above average for Scotland, Northern Ireland, or Scotland, Ireland, not a particularly big deviation. Just a bit colder than average for England and Wales. Precipitation anomaly for the 11th, 19th of January, most areas coming out drier than normal. Latest wind map from Earth, Null School. .net shows that we've got high pressure sitting over the country today. A milder air from the Atlantic trying to get in and will gradually do so, but it's going to take a long time to get the milder air down into the south. That's because of this ridge here. So the ridge is gradually slipping southwards, allowing these milder Atlantic winds to spread in across the country, but because of that high pressure in the south and the fact that it's already cold, underneath the high on the surface, it is going to take a while to warm things up down in the southeast. Nevertheless, by Tuesday we should all be a bit milder and cloudy, very mild up in the north most likely, and then into the second half of the week, when again this high pressure just to the south could allow for fog and maybe a bit of inversion down the south. That might deliver some frost and fog down there. Meanwhile, further north and west, so the southwest you're in, a lot of cloud and generally mild temperatures towards the end of next week, maybe a bit more unsettled in Scotland Island as well by next weekend. I can't all much of a muchness with that high pressure. A little bit to the south, maybe a better chance of turning the south a bit milder there by the second half of next week. And Icon also starting to break down the ridge and turn more unsettled into next weekend. Sorry again, everyone. That's the 18th of January. The KMA looks like that. So, once more, we could see some fog down in the south in the second half of the week. Scotland Island looking mostly cloudy and mild. The high pressure has a go at reaching towards Scandinavia, but I don't think much is going to come of that. But we generally keep the high pressure over and to the east of the country. It could allow for further inversion conditions there as we're going into the following week. So risk of frost and fog continuing and ongoing. Eventually, by the 23rd of January, we've got a Scandinavian high starting to appear, and it looks like that's about to do battle with low pressure in the Atlantic. So where we will go beyond that remains to be seen, but it would be, that Scandi high is toying with us a little bit there on the KMA, but it's a long way out, that one. Okay, let's have a GFS midnight range looking. Now, the GFS is consistently further north and strong with this area of high pressure. I don't know what the GFS is seeing compared to what all of the other model output is seeing for next week, to be honest. But suffice to say, if the GFS is right, then England and Wales could well be pretty chilly next week, and the mildest temperatures really are confined to the extreme north and west. It all depends on, how far north that area of high pressure is. Something's got to give with the position of that high pressure, but GFS, I would assume, is going to back down on this, but never know, it could be right. Anyway, into next weekend, well, still probably quite cold in the south and the east with further fog and frost. Low pressure starting to edge in from the Atlantic. That's a setup at day 10, bring up a southwesterly wind, so looking milder and a bit more unsettled by that point. And in the extended range, the GFS midnight run does turn properly wet, windy with deep low pressure sweeping in from off the Atlantic. GFS 6 then, by comparison, again, showing that high pressure a lot further north compared to all of the other model output through next week, and could allow for fog and frost in England and Wales anyway, maybe even up towards Scotland by the end of next week. Most of the country is covered by the ridge of high pressure there by next Saturday. So it's a subtle difference, but it's a very, very, very important difference to the overall feel of the weather. And if the GFS is right, next week could turn out to be actually quite cold for more southern and southeast areas. It may never truly warm up in the far south and southeast if the GFS is right, but I'm expecting the GFS will kind of back down. Well, as I said to day 10, another ridge building in from the southwest. We should all be milder by then. And then in the extended, the GFS V2 starts trying to move high pressure up towards Scandinavia. So that's a bit of a trend within the model output at the moment. But we see on the mild side of that and draw up the southwesterly wind with outbreaks of rain becoming increasingly widespread, particularly to the north and the west. If you enjoyed the video, please do like, share and subscribe. Thanks so much everyone for doing that. Why not drop a comment? Let us know what you think about this and all of our videos, content and whatnot. And don't forget to tell your friends about GavsWeatherVids. Get them to subscribe to. 20 subscribers will get us to 19.4k. So if you could give us a sub, that'd be absolutely awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. GM, again, with high pressure to south, low pressure north. A lot further southwards with that area of high pressure, in line with most of the other model output, except the GFS for next week. Could allow some fog in the far south, but most areas looking mild and cloudy in both southwest winds. Increasingly unsettled into next weekend. Low pressure being wet and windy weather in the Atlantic. And another low there heading in at day 10. That's the 21st of January. And then the ECM looking like that. So the ECM maybe a bit further northwards, closer to the GFS actually, with that high pressure, which is quite interesting for next week. That could allow some quite cold weather to continue down in the south. Scotland and Ireland looking a bit milder. It is quite extraordinary, but I mean, as early as like 72, 96 hours, there is a big divergence in the centre of that high pressure where it's going to land. We'll just have to wait and see. It's got to resolve itself soon. But it just goes to show, even at like 72, 96 hours sometimes, the models can disagree. Into next weekend, it doesn't unsettle, except for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Some rain there, but for England, where it's still mostly dry, possible fog and frost. And then the ridge actually builds back from the east again around days 9 and 10, perhaps bringing an increasing risk of fog even to more northern areas. And then in the extended, the ECM today is again trying to build up a Scandinavian high and switch the wind around to an easterly, but at the same time low pressure deepening in the Atlantic. So that's a case of let battle commence really into the last week of January. This ECM run brings all of the energy in from the Atlantic and quickly moves the ridge back into Western Russia. But it's a long way off, and we would need to wait and see closer to a time frame. But an attempt to build a Scandinavian high anyway into the last week of January does appear to be there rather weakly within the model output today. It's a long way off. Right, this is precipitation forecast based on that ECM run from Twitter.com. We have had some snow from western, southwestern parts of Scotland, a little bit heavier and more disruptive than expected. That's going to fizzle out this afternoon. Overnight and through the next few days, mostly dry in the south and the east, whereas lighter rain drizzle up towards the north and the west. The emphasis really is on dry weather across most parts of the country all the way out to day 10. To be honest, most of the rain-bearing systems being deflected out into the Atlantic. These are the options on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10 from the Icelandic Met Office. Gets us to the 21st of January. 19 members of the ECM ensembles with low pressure in the Atlantic. High pressure is to the east. That's having a go back in the wind into an easterly there, probably. More of a southeasterly, but could be quite chilly anyway. 17, milder, low pressure up here and up here with high pressure down there. That should bring in a quite straightforward sort of westerly flow. And then 15, including control and the operational run, stronger with that area of high pressure to the east. That's going to be mostly dry and could be quite chilly. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got, and it gets us to the 26th of January. So 24 members of the ECM ensembles with low pressure in the Atlantic, high pressure up towards Scandinavia. Let battle commence. Which way will that go? And then we've got 14 with low pressure over coast. That's going to be very unsettled and wet, but mild. And then we've got 13 with low pressure way to the northwest, high pressure to the south, and that's back into those mild southwesterly wind. So the majority option is like the battle option of low pressure Atlantic, high pressure Scandinavia. However, you can put 14 Down with the 13, then actually the majority is in favour of the mild Atlantic-driven flow into the last week of January. All a long way off, all speculative, so we shall see. A prospect, a possibility of a Scandinavian high in the last week to 10 days of January might be the focus of the videos next week. We'll see. CFS V2, these are 500 millibar high times break down into week periods. The first week period takes us to the 11th, 17th of January. The next week with high pressure dominating the weather, mostly dry, and going to take a while for the south to warm up. Week 2 will be the 18th, 24th of January. High pressure bed is to the south, and winds are coming from more of a southwesterly direction. That's mostly dry, but milder. Week 3 will be 25th of January to the 31st. High pressure again through there, low pressure through there. Up comes those southwest winds. CFS rock solid there on much milder conditions. They may carry on into February. This is week 4, the 1st to the 7th of February. Again, high pressure through there, low pressure through there, winds coming up from the southwest. The CFS is not seeing, suffice to say, a Scandinavian high and the prospect of any more colder weather. But then again, the CFS didn't really see the cold weather that we've just been through. The CFS will always try and default back to mild conditions. 9 times out of 10 it will be right, but there's always that 1 in 10 where it might be wrong. Oh, let's wait and see, anyway, where things are going. Right, we're done. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much for doing that. Why not drop a comment? Bit of a longer video today, 25 minutes. Blimey. Been a while since I've done a 25-minute. Why not drop a comment? Let us know what you think about this and all of our videos. What do you think to see Saturday? Gav being on his soapbox. And don't forget to tell your friends about GavsWeatherVids. Get them to subscribe too. And thank you so much, everyone, for doing that. So tomorrow, we've got 6 AM UK weather forecast. The first update for spring as well. So we're back on the long-range bandwagon starting tomorrow, and we're going to be live at 6 PM. We'll have a look at 12s then. We'll do ensembles watch, and it's going to be an interesting stream. That will be coming up at 6 PM tomorrow. I shall see you live for that one. For this one, though, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Try and keep warm. And for this one, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.